Graham Linehan sacrificed everything so he could become a darling of the far right. Yeah,
he's one of those sensible liberals who is almost completely woke, who agrees with all the bollocks, except when it gets to that point there.
There are people who do nothing, but then there are people who actively betray as well. So the bloke we went to see in London was a chap called Graham Linehan, who is a writer, very famous writer. He wrote Father Ted, Black Books, The IT Crowd, and he's leaving England. So this do in London, hosted by the Free Speech Union, was a farewell to Graham Linehan. And he was on stage with Toby Young and they were chatting. Really interesting, actually. Although there were a lot of boring people in the audience who, when asked to ask a question, instead made a statement. You know, I hate that.
Yeah.
And there's,
we all know those people.
Yeah, there's one in the CCC who does it, who basically just drones on rather than actually asking a question. Because when you present your book, I want people to ask you questions and hear your responses. I want a quick question and then let's give us some. So there were a few of those last night. But Graham Linehan described how when he started, so what he was cancelled over was basically the trans thing. Yeah. So he wrote an episode of the IT Crowd with a trans character who ended up fighting. I think we were laughing and joking about it before, weren't we? It's basically he's a bloke in a dress and another bloke having a fight. But the trans community piled in on him basically. And he came back and said, no, this is fine. There's nothing wrong here. And I'm just protecting women's rights, blah, blah, blah. Expecting all his friends, people he'd worked, in particular one guy called Arthur Matthews, who he co-wrote Father Ted with. He expected them all to come with him and back him up and say, yeah, Graham's fine, he's a great guy, whatever. None of them did. And in fact, some of them actively spoke against him. Actively. Apparently Arthur Matthews, this character, who he's at a recent funeral that a friend of theirs that died, he said, Graham Linehan sacrificed everything so he could become a darling of the far right. Yeah, he accused him of deliberately doing, and all Graham Linehan's been doing for the last 5 years, and he's lost his house, he's lost his wife, he's lost his family, he's lost his career, because nobody will employ him now, because he stood up for women against the trannies. Because of all that, he's now leaving to go and work in America, because the police are constantly coming around and arresting him and all that sort of jazz. All the time. But there's this second group, there's the people you described with the first people who say nothing, weak men. There's another group who do worse than that. Even though they know it's shit, they will actively work against what is right.
And that's a human trait. We have a name for those people. They're called traitors. Every society, every country has people who will sell their fellow citizens down the river if it pushes them up the pecking order. We had Vichy government in France. We've had, here's a one that most people don't know. The SNP in Scotland were trying to do a deal with the Nazi Germany to say, we will run Scotland when you invade. So there's always people willing to do that. There's a famous saying, I forgot who said it now, something along the lines is, there's always people inside, there's people who would rather rule over the ashes of their country, if that's how they get to rule. And the reason why we have those people in society is because at certain level, at certain points, it must work. So those traitorous genes and ideologies get passed through the timeline and gets down passed through history. So it must work every now and again. Otherwise, there would be no traitor gene. You would stick up for your own people, your own group. But yeah, and that's what those people are doing. They are traitors. They're selling other people down the river because it helps them either gain social points, move up the greasy pole, look better, and hopefully they'll get more opportunities. Happens all the time. It's a human trait.
But these are people that he'd known since he was a young man. He and the Arthur Matthews guy had written together in Ireland, when they were young men, and they'd grown up together, they'd written all these years. So this was a proper friendship. Yeah. And his views, the Arthur Matthews guy, will have been similar to Graham Linehan's views about all these things.
They would have been identical apart from the trans issue. I'm not a fan of Graham Linehan. I think he's part of the problem. He's one of those, I called him last time, sensible liberals. He's one of those sensible liberals who is almost completely woke, who agrees with all the bollocks, except when it gets to that point there. And his breaking point was the trans thing. But up to that point, he agreed with all of it, and he supported it. And he probably attacked other people for not being as woke as him.
Yes, he did. In fact, Toby Young, who was interviewing him, he was constantly attacking Toby Young before this all happened.
Yeah.
And Toby Young is far more of a hero, because Toby Young has been reasonable all the way through and then supported him massively when this all happened to him.
And that's because Toby Young isn't an ideologue. He's not looking at good and bad and my enemies and my friends. He's looking at doing what is righteous and supporting your so-called enemies when they are turned upon. That's what you do. That's what superheroes do. Superman and superheroes at some point in a film will always save their nemesis from dying, because that's what makes you a superhero. He's not only saving the people you like and you agree with. It's about saving everybody. That's what Toby Young did. I'm sure Graham Lineau's changed on lots of views. I'm sure he's not the person he was.
Yeah. He has, because it was the day of the inauguration, and he was saying back in 2016, I couldn't believe it when Trump won. I hated him, blah, blah, blah. He said, I only read The Guardian, you know. And he actually said something very interesting, I thought. He said, the opinions of the centrists are developed and, you know, argued or whatever. He said the opinions of the left are memorised. Yeah. And I thought that was a really interesting point. And basically saying there's broadsheets like The Guardian, they're not broadsheets anymore, but papers like The Guardian, where basically your opinions are presented to you daily and you have to learn them, basically.
That's why every lefty says exactly the same things. Trans rights are human rights.
Yeah.
My body, my choice.
Yes.
They have a narrative. It's just rhetoric.
Yeah.
If you question them on that, or we see it on YouTube videos when the people go up to the Free Palestine people going, oh, from the river to the sea. Which river, which sea? Oh, I don't know. Because they will scream and shout anything if they get told this is the thing you should be shouting today.
Yeah.
They're not thinkers.
Yeah.
You know, they don't understand nuance. They just know this is the right side. Yeah, this is the right side. I'll shout whatever you want me to shout.
He was actually, and I know you're not a fan of his, but he was actually...
And I think Father Ted's one of my favourite sitcoms ever.
Yeah.
I think Father Ted's amazing.
But the great thing is, you watch Father Ted even though he wrote it.
Yeah.
Even though you don't particularly like it.
Because I'm not an ideologue.
Correct. Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. It's like the J.K. Rowling thing, isn't it? All these trannies hate J.K. Rowling. They're trying to destroy her, giving her a dress out, whatever. But they burn her books as well. So it's not like I don't agree with
Other people used to burn books. Do you remember who they were?
The Nazis.
The Nazis.
Yeah, because the Nazis is a National Socialist Party, isn't it? Yeah. They're socialists, aren't they? They're left wingers. People believe they're right wingers, but they're not. So so it's not like, I disagree with J.K. Rowling's views, but she's a good writer.
Yeah.
I disagree with J.K. Rowling's views, and I'm going to burn her books and try and stop other people reading her books as well.
J.K. Rowling introduced reading to generations of young people who weren't reading anymore. Yeah. I mean, just for that one thing, she'll go down in history as a fantastic woman.
Yeah.
Regardless of any of other beliefs. I'm just saying, for that one thing, getting young people reading again was an amazing achievement.
Yeah. He actually said something quite funny, because he said when J.K. Rowling started off with the trans thing, she was saying, I've got lots of trans friends and I like trans people, but blah, 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 women need their own spaces. Now she doesn't hold back at all. She's just like, they're all mentally ill and all that sort of stuff. She's learned it doesn't matter how you approach it. These people are unforgiving. Once they're into you, that's it. Once they've decided you're going to be cancelled, that's it. And Graham Linehan said that, my approach at the beginning was more, I tried to be moderate. He said, I realise now, once they've decided, you're going to be destroyed, basically. Yeah. And they all went for him, basically. Yeah. And it kind of destroyed his career.
And that they treated him like that because he was an apostate.
Yes.
He was a true believer who turned.
Yeah.
And in religions, you can't have people leaving the religion, because that can spread.
Yes.
When you start telling the people, I'm leaving because of these reasons, and this doesn't make sense, I don't agree with that, and you allow people to start thinking about the inconsistencies of any idea and any ideology or religion, that's dangerous. So you shut it down, and some religions kill you for doing it, and on the left, they excommunicate you and go for you till you're dead. And that's why.
Yeah. So it was interesting, as you said in your book. You made the point, what was your description of where weak Englishmen? Weak Englishmen have allowed this to happen. As I say, there's a further iteration that is weak Englishmen who become traitors to people when they know they're in the right as well. So I thought that was really interesting.